Happy Friday, everybody. The Rare Friday Rest Day podcast here. Joining me on the couch, as always, Corrine, Malcolm. We are broadcasting almost poolside here in Phoenix, Arizona. Corrine, good morning.
I think it's hilarious that we both came from very much colder places, wetter places than this, and we tried to go out to record in the yard this morning, and we're like, it's kind of cold out here. Maybe we should go record on the couch. So we've moved inside to the safety and security of this very plush couch outside of Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes, our couch, our lap pillows fully in place here as we bring the trail news to trail fans around the world. Of course, it is almost Black Canyon weekend. The season is officially...
Ostensibly, it's Black Canyon weekend.
The season is officially kicking off here. Corinne and I are going to be working hard to sort of bring the story of this year's Black Canyon Ultras to the general public over the next few days. We'll get to that in a little bit. The purposes of today's show is to talk about some other news that's happening in the sport. So quick run through the docket before we jump into it, Corinne. As we've done in the last few of these newsy episodes, a lot of free agency news happening in trail running right now, including some announcements that have happened this week, maybe some that even include somebody joining me here on the couch, a big announcement that happened today as well. And then we'll sort of pivot and talk about some event news in the sport as well as it relates to sponsorship and some new event announcements. Actually, there's a lot going on in the sport, so diving into it first and foremost. Actually, I have to say, our last podcast that we did together, people were enraged that we didn't cover the Chipotle challenge.
Sorry.
So we apologize for that.
We had Chipotle last night for dinner to make up for it.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably be covering it in the Shakeout show later on this afternoon as part of our Black Canyon coverage. So apologies to our viewers and listeners. We'll get to the Chipotle news at some point, but what a phenomenon that was. Diving into, let's not bury the lead here, Corinne. Hoka makes a huge announcement this week, a 5-athlete haul, a very fun announcement, including the one and only Corinne Malcolm. Congratulations
Thank you.
on the new partnership.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm sure you guys will talk about it at length on Tuesday's episode of Trail Society, but tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's cool. We basically doubled the U.S. women's team, effectively bringing 5 of us on this year. Myself, Katie Asmuth, Lottie Brinks, Allison Baca, Jess Brazeau.
Hell of a lineup.
Really cool lineup. We got to put together a really fun announcement. It was actually supposed to come out today, and they realized that I was working media here, that Katie was racing and going to be joining us later today for the elite panel. And we were like, oh, maybe this announcement has to come out before they're in public, soft launching in Hoka gear. So they put it out earlier this week, and I think everyone had the appropriate reaction to the announcement, where we were like, oh, the cute factor was nailed in a big way. And it was really special. So stoked to be joining the team. Really cool to get messages from, Hayden Hawks and Adam Peterman and Francesco Pupi, who was recently announced as well. Like, that we're all excited to be teammates. And we've got a women's U.S. Hoka WhatsApp group text firing off on all cylinders as we try to figure out what product we need and what product we want and where we're going to be and who's racing what. So kind of cool to have those low key, less of the the intentional contract stuff, but more of the team building happening organically.
Sweet. Well, one thing that I'm sure the audience would love to hear you talk about a little bit, to the extent you can, is that this is a little bit different. I mean, it's not just a straight athlete partnership like you have had for your entire career. This feels like a big new step for you, where you can engage both your athletic capabilities and your intellectual capabilities to add value to Hoka.
Yeah, it's interesting because if those of you who have listened to various interviews, I was on Second Nature with Aaron Lutzi, and I alluded to what my new role was going to be. Listen to Trail Society this next week. Same sort of thing. We talk about it a little bit more in depth, but effectively, the athlete contract actually was a secondary piece of me coming on with Hoka. I've been doing some work with them, with members of their team for the past year, working on the media side with you, interfacing with their media partnership team, working kind of internally coming in with Hoka to work with UTMB and Ironman as it pertains to female athletes at those events. And so I was offered an Adidas contract. I've mentioned that before, and I turned it down, and it was the safer option. I went for something that was going to allow me to grow, hopefully, and put me where I want to be in 5 years' time, not just, this year or in the next 3 years. And so, yeah, I am a sports marketing team member now. I'm a consultant for the year working specifically on women in trail running. Going to be launching some cool initiatives, doing some research, working in a pretty hands-on way with the UTMB World Series. And so I don't come from a marketing background. Topher Gaylord has listened to me complain, ask questions about, do I need to go get an MBA? Like trying to figure out what my next career move was, essentially. And this allows me to kind of dip my toe in and do some actual work and develop some hard skills within the marketing and sports, just general outdoor business space. I've got the athlete experience. I've done a bunch of event stuff, but I don't have that, hard skill MBA experience. And so I feel like I'm learning a lot, and I'm hopeful that this becomes a long-term thing.
Much better to learn on the job than in the classroom.
I hope
That's my opinion. And I love the way that you frame that too, about how sticking with Adidas would have been the safer option.
Way safer.
And this is an expression of you taking a new step in your career while still being able to pursue professional athletics. So shout out to Hoka for giving you that opportunity. I'm glad you landed in a great spot. And shout out also to all those names you just mentioned. Katie Asmuth, Lottie Brinks, Jess Brazeau, Allison Baca, all bringing amazing new talent to the Hoka team. So
Katie racing this weekend at Black Canyon in the 100K, Allison racing in the 50K, Lottie Brinks will be racing for a golden ticket at Tarawera. So just really cool to see all these gals land on their feet. Jess Brazeau coming in more officially as an athlete, obviously on her own contract, not just, a tag-along team member. I think that's really important, that they recognize how talented Jess is in her own running. Watching her in the VK.
It's easy to be in Jim Walmsley's shadow.
Yes. Everyone's
Jess
in Jim's.
Jess is a great athlete in her own right.
So excited. And we were actually, I think you expressed worry to me, wondering where Lottie Brinks was going, knowing that she had exited the North American Solomon team. And I was like, it's okay. Wait, I know where she's going. It's fine. But really excited for Lottie Brinks, a young, very talented athlete, to have an opportunity to really hopefully elevate her training and racing. So
awesome. Well, if there's nothing else we want to mention about this right now, again, I'm sure you guys will talk about it in depth on Trail Society next week. But big congrats to everybody involved and just keeping the show moving along. There's a lot more free agency announcements, including today, NNormal announced a huge signing.
Thank goodness.
Joyce Njeru from Kenya, one of the breakout stars of 2024, third place in Trail Runner of the Year, the overall winner of the Golden Trail World Series, landing with NNormal. Comments?
Huge. I think NNormal has a real women's issue in the sense that they need to sign women. They are standout on the men's side. Killian Jornet, Dakota Jones,
El Hussein,
amazing season. Emily and Allie Ostrander were their only women on the team. And then Emily's pregnant, and Allie was racing mostly on the road and track and has left to pursue more road and track stuff. So they have a really big hole in the women's side, and they needed to bring in a big name woman. And I love that it's Joyce. I love that it's a Kenyan athlete. I love that it's another short distance athlete. So bringing Joyce into the fold is a big deal. I think
especially for one of these smaller challenger brands, right? Joyce was probably a coveted athlete for a lot of the bigger players in the market. So for her to intentionally choose NNormal, for NNormal to be able to land her, good news all around.
And I'm hopeful too that NNormal will be an opportunity to have a lot of hands-on work with that team. I know that they're very intentional with product development, with team camp, with science, with some of those resources. And so I'm really hopeful that that will suit Joyce really well versus maybe being thrown into an Adidas, a Salomon, et cetera. So fingers crossed that that goes really well, but huge news. I mean, to have Elisine and Joyce as your pinnacle athletes on the Golden Trail World Series, it's a pretty good spot for NNormal to be in.
That's what I was going to say. Joyce and El Hussein. Could we see NNormal sweep the top of the podium in the Golden Trail World Series here in 2025? That would be a fun storyline to follow here this season. And we were just talking yesterday as it relates to these great Kenyan athletes that are now making an enormous impact in our sport. Rumor has it that Joylene Chepneno might be donning a new athlete kit here in 2025.
We've seen her in some brand new Salomon gear.
And shiny red Salomon products aren't super discreet.
Crisp white shirt, bright red shoes. So that would be a big pickup for Salomon as well. Most of the Kenyan athletes race on these Kenyan-specific teams in which it's kind of all in-house. And so these athletes actually getting one-off contracts separate out of the Kenyan trail ecosystem. I think that's really important for the growth of the sport. And so if Joyce and Joylene are both landing solo contracts with these teams, I think that's everything moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Couple more pieces of free agency news. Brooks, I feel like, is quietly building one of the strongest trail running teams in the world right now. Announced this week a new crop for them, also especially on the North American side, headlined, I think, by Chris Myers, the great young American talent who had a great season in 2024. Also, in addition to Chris, Christina Randrup, Taylor Stack, Sydney Peterson, and Barrett Gray, All-American athletes. Remy LaRue, one of Canada's best athletes, announced for Brooks this week too.
And Anthony Felber.
And Anthony Felber, Frenchman.
Huge deal.
Yeah.
Anthony, I think, is a great ad. Brooks has this young, very fast European side of the brand as well. And so seeing Anthony land there makes a lot of sense to me. Really good pickups on the North American side, generally more short distance. Really cool to have people like Christina Randrup and Barrett Gray, both Seattle runners. Brooks is a Seattle company. Bringing those women in, I think, is really important because they're integral to the brand in that way. They both race really well. They both race quite a lot. We're going to get to see, actually, Blake Slatengren, a Brooks athlete. Barrett is his partner, will be out here crewing him as he tries to go for a golden ticket this weekend. So cool to see Brooks developing that team. I think the only big loss they took this year from their pro team was Kat Bradley, and who's yet to announce where she is going. So I think that those additions kind of fit the kind of track to trail pipeline with some of those younger athletes coming in, but also core to the Seattle community, and then adding another big name with Chris Myers in particular.
Yeah, it feels like they're really building for the present and the future, right? Brooks, I think, has done such a good job of identifying the young talent and then hopefully build a long-term relationship with them so they can build a foundation of partnership to help these athletes really excel in their careers. Some of the best examples of that, of course, Anna Gibson, who's been a force the last couple of seasons.
And she's on kind of a dual contract with them too, which is a little bit different. She is kind of a trail
first athlete who does race on the track.
Yeah, and I think they negotiated pretty strongly for that with her. I think her contract probably looks a little bit different, for example, than a Blake Slatengren.
Right, of course.
So curious to see.
Mika Boudon-Rousseau is sort of similar in that respect.
Yes, 100%.
But those two are absolute superstars. Then you add the likes of somebody like Chris Myers, who's more in like the mid-distance to long distance at this point in his career. Still only 28 years old. Chris Myers, absolutely a huge get, it feels like, for Brooks, who, like I said, I feel like is just slowly and steadily building and quietly building an incredible team. So I think we're going to see a lot of Brooks uniforms on podiums this year. Final bit of free agency news. Corrine, take your victory lap. Cody Lind to TERREX. You called it.
I did. I called it. I think this was supposed to happen years ago. But there was a few things standing in the way of that contract really coming to fruition. Cody's he's an amazing athlete. He had an amazing UTMB performance this year. We've seen him run really well at Western States. Has his hits and misses. We're coached by the same person, actually. Sam Naney coaches him, so I'm a big Cody Lind fan. But also Paul Lind has a ton of ties. So his father has a ton of ties into the TERREX team, coaching both Emily Hawgood and Taylor Nowlin on the women's side of that program. So I think they've been wanting to bring Paul and Cody into the fold for a number of years now, and it finally came true this year. I texted Paul when Cody announced he was leaving Scott, and I said, he better be going to TERREX. And he sent me like eyeball emojis, and I was like, okay. So really pleased to see that. I commented on it like, this is the collaboration we've been waiting for. So that's a big deal. Cody's been not secretly, he's been just like quietly chipping away for years and years and years. And Scott was able to give him some support, but I don't think Scott was able to give him the support that a team like TERREX is going to be able to give him. And I think he's going to really thrive in that environment.
Yeah, you and I were just talking about the TERREX environment. Of course, you lived inside of it for 6 or 7 years yourself as an athlete. And maybe talk about the ecosystem and how plugging into a team like that is good for some individuals and maybe not good for others. I think there's a lot to be said for something like Cody, who is like one of the real good guys in the sport, to go from being sort of on an island by himself with Scott, more or less, to actually being plugged into a team.
Oh, and I'm picturing, him with like Eric LaPuma and Steve Kirsch, and that just makes me really happy right? Like a group of really good guys. What's different from TERREX versus other brands, and having lived in that ecosystem for 6 years, is that the team element is really important over the individual element. They obviously celebrate everyone's individual performances, but that team thing is very important. So all brands have what races they want their athletes to do. TERREX definitely has that in a big way. Both races that TERREX is sponsoring more and more, but also just very specific events where we can have short distance athletes there, medium, like mid-length, like you want someone in the 20K, the 80K, and the 100 mile at a race. And so they're able to do that by targeting races that have that built into the race weekend, i.e. TerraWear is a team race for Adidas TERREX this year. So we will see a number of their athletes on the start line next weekend. That doesn't work for everyone, where you might want a little bit more flexibility in your ecosystem. You might want to, it's nice to have a team house in Chamonix for a month. 100% agree with that. It's like, that is an expensive trip, but that also oftentimes means that you're not staying with your partner or your significant other. It often means that you're sharing, you're in a twin bed sharing a room with a teammate for that month. It's not a perfect setup for everyone. Not everyone is going to thrive in that environment. And I think that team benefits a lot of people, but it really benefits young athletes who don't necessarily have all the support at home, i.e. physios, trainers, mental health counseling, et cetera. Adidas can provide a lot of that. But if you have a pet, a partner, a home, somewhere you want to be, it's a little bit maybe less advantageous because you don't want to spend 6 months of your year on the road. You like being home, you like your training environment. And so you definitely have to find a way, I think, to fit into that if it's going to allow you to be successful.
Right, but for the right person, it can really take you to the next level.
Yes.
And I really loved how you described that too, in that what you're describing is in these partnership considerations for athletes, it's not necessarily only about the product and how much money you're making, but it's also about this environment and the ecosystem around, the support that you get to help you actually achieve your goals. And for every athlete, they require different things to reach those goals. And that's why it's so important to be intentional, to keep your options open, and to engage in really thoughtful partnerships with these brands that will hopefully stand the test of time.
Yeah, and we see that in extremes in like road cycling and mountain biking, for example, where you're either part of a team or you're a privateer. And the team, you share the same sponsors, you're at training camp, you're living together. Privateer, you have your own sponsors, but you're still racing at the World Cup. You're still doing that thing that everyone else is doing. Yep. And those have very different benefits and very different cons, very like things that aren't as easy in either direction. And so we're going to see that more and more in trail running, the privateers versus the team-based athletes and teams that are maybe in the middle. I can see Hoka being in the middle, where it's more about, it's a little bit privateery in the sense that we are more individual. I think we've got a little bit more flex in our planning and where we are at, but I think you can create a team culture in which you're supporting one another, you're communicating with one another, you're saying, oh, hey, I'm also going to this race. Do you want to share resources and plan for that? So I think you can create that team culture without necessarily it being mandated. And so there's probably a sweet spot.
Francesco Poppi mentioned something about that and his consideration about leaving Nike, wanting to feel like he was more part of a team. And each brand does it a little bit differently. And actually I had a conversation with somebody at Nike yesterday about how they were looking to improve that aspect of their team too. So, everybody's trying to create an environment to help their athletes be successful, help their products be commercially successful in the marketplace. And there's a lot that goes in to all this stuff, but it's fun to just, consider and talk about. We're sort of coming to the end of free agency season. We're still looking ahead to announcements from, off the top of my head, people like Sabrina Stanley, Hannah Allgood. I'm trying to remember if there's anybody else, any of the bigger names that we're still waiting on announcements for. But you can follow along. Go to fantasy.freetrail.com. We keep track of this every year. On the top of the navigation bar, you'll see a tab that says athletes. You can drop that down, click on free agency. I think it actually says moves on there. And you can track along with what Corrine and I are talking about here in professional athlete free agency and the different shakeups that are happening between athletes and brands here as we enter the early parts of the 2025 season. I think this is only going to become more and more entertaining annually as trail running continues to get super, super professionalized. Pivoting to some events news, if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Big news from our boy, Tim Tollefson, the founder and head crafter of the Mammoth Trail Fest.
He's going to be on the men's elite panel later today.
Amazing.
And I asked him, I said, hey, can you and Nacho be on the men's panel? And he said, as long as we can wear matching outfits. So I'm hoping that Nacho is there in a little matching getup with Tim.
So Tim Tollefson, of course, taking the start line this weekend of the Black Canyon 100K, looking for that golden ticket to Western States. We were talking yesterday about Weight Watchers. Our boy Ryan Thrower's behind the scenes here. Tim and Ryan, of course, anchor the Weight Watchers crew for Western States, having both been on the wait list themselves last year. And there is painfully little movement on the Western States wait list right now. So if you're a Weight Watcher here in the Freetrail audience, we're thinking about you, okay? We're thinking about you, especially Ryan and Tim thinking about you. But speaking of Tim, his race, Mammoth Trail Fest, has become one of the biggest phenomenons in North American trail running. In only 3 years, it's already become like a destination event, announcing a new, it sounds like, multi-year partnership with Kraft. The reason I think this is interesting, throwing it to you, Corrine, is that, of course, Kraft is Tim's personal sponsor as an athlete. So maybe just talk about this extension of this partnership between Tim and Kraft, what it means for the two of them plus Mammoth Trail Fest.
Yeah, I think it's just an interesting growth in his personal career and where his career is going to be going in the next 5 to 10 years, where he still has there's still a lot of dog in him, right? Still a lot of fight in that guy. He's got that dog in him. And so what I mean by that is that while his racing is still very much alive and well, and we're going to see amazing performances from Tim, he is spending more and more time thinking about legacy, I think, and thinking about, these next steps. And this passion project for the longest time was getting the Mammoth Trail Fest off the ground. Yeah. Was able to do that successfully. And now to bring in his personal sponsor to create this kind of long-term partnership and commitment, I think also speaks to just the brand valuing him. Kraft has done this a number of times. David Laney is one of their athletes, and he also works for the brand. Yep. And I like that. I like brands.
Sort of like you now.
Exactly. Bringing people in part-time, working it into full-time, finding different ways to support them, I think is really important because they are the best extension of the brand. Yep. So it creates a lot of community investment. It's a great way, the ROI on people buying shoes associated with Kraft because they're now the title sponsor of the Mammoth Trail Fest. I do think there's an ROI there. Yeah. So really excited to see that. Yeah. Also, they added a new race to that race weekend.
Right. Are we allowed to talk about that yet? Has that been announced?
It's public, yeah.
Okay. You want to talk about it real quick? Because we're going to talk about some other
super long races.
New edition of new races on the circuit here that look awesome here.
Yeah. So one of the race directors that works with Tim Tollefson is our good friend Hillary Yang. Yeah. And it's public, it's official. They are launching a 200-mile race, 206 miles, I think, associated with Mammoth Trail Fest called the Mammoth. Yeah. It basically
just the perfect brand.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It's one big loop. It's got more aid stations than most 200-mile races.
One perfect loop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like...
It kind of looks like a mammoth. It's this weird shape, but...
It's just a dream loop.
It's a dream loop. I was given an entry to the race, so that is the only thing I'm signed up for, and I'll just sign up.
Oh no, Corrine, you're crazy.
So we'll see what happens, but it is open to the public. What they've done is they've opened basically a wait list because they're waiting on one last permit that should come through. And so they've opened a wait list. They're not charging anyone's cards yet. And then those people will be brought into the race as soon as they get the green light. I think there's 160 people on that quote unquote wait list. So they've probably got nearly 200 people signed up for the race at this point for an inaugural event running around Mammoth. And
Sally McRae did the quality control on the loop last summer.
And it was quality.
As our audience probably knows at this point. So if you're interested to take part in the Mammoth, maybe drop a line to Sally McRae, see how the experience
They put out a beautiful video from that experience. So it's long, but if you're on the treadmill.
You can find it on Sally McRae's YouTube channel. So awesome. So just a couple of quotes here from the press release between Kraft and Trail Fest before we pivot off of it. Again, congrats to Kraft, congrats to Tim. It is awesome for Kraft to be able to have an anchor event here in North America. Definitely value additive for a European brand. And Craft has like really been investing in the sport.
And 9 new athletes.
Right, 9 new athletes, including David Sinclair, Jupiter Carrera-Casas, who's going to be
Mary
racing this
Denholm,
weekend.
who's racing this
Mary
weekend.
Denholm this weekend. So it's awesome to just see Craft continuing to double down on the sport with athletes, now with events here in North America.
Yeah,
so,
their team manager, Abel, is here, along with Arroyo Cio, who will be racing as well. So
Right.
Craft's got a presence here. They want to send a lot of people to Western states, it would seem.
Cool. So just a couple of quotes here to read for our audience before we move on. It says, following a landmark 2024 event that drew nearly 2,000 runners from 22 countries and 40 states, with 47% female participation, Corrine, Mammoth Trail Fest has entered into a new multi-year partnership with Craft Sportswear. This collaboration signals an exciting new chapter for the celebrated trail running festival. Tim Tollefson, head crafter and founder of the Mammoth Trail Fest, reflected on the journey leading up to this partnership. Quote unquote, after losing our title sponsor, it was difficult to be honest, Tollefson shared. While we measure success in smiles and the feedback we get from the community, it's hard not to feel disheartened when a sponsor moves on. But just like the seasons in the Eastern Sierra, change comes quickly, and we soon found ourselves in discussions with leading brands in the running industry, ... Lots of good vibes from Tim.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what he's suggesting there is that it was probably a fairly competitive negotiation. You could see how Mammoth Trail Fest would be a coveted...
They sell out in a day.
Yeah. An anchor event
For 4 events,
any
now 5
brand
events.
in the sport. So the fact that Tim gets to extend this partnership that he's developed with Craft is great. I'll read just a quote from Craft here, too, because I think that's important. It says, partnering with the Mammoth Trail Fest and collaborating with Tim, a true icon in trail running, is an incredible opportunity for Craft. Nicholas Moberg, head of brand at Craft Sportswear, said, Trail Fest represents all that is great about running community, celebrating the joy of running in nature and bringing people together on the trail. This partnership was a natural fit for us, and we're excited to work even closer with Tim and help elevate Trail Fest to new heights while creating memorable experiences for all participants.
Love it.
Good stuff.
Love to see it.
Congrats to Tim. Congrats to Craft. Congrats to the whole Trail Fest crew. And we'll see Corrine Malcolm on the start line of the Mammoth come September 25.
Ooh.
Maybe I'll jump in and pace you for a little segment.
Yeah,
there,
you want to
Corrine.
hang out? It'd be
I mean,
fun.
if I can keep up, we'll see.
Oh, well, it's a long way to go. But speaking of long races, a long race that happens in the backyard here, Cocodona 250.
That's what I was pivoting to next.
Announced
Speaking
a
of
new race.
races that have, like Mammoth Trail Fest, made a huge impact on the sport and on the community in a few short years. I think Cocodona is maybe 5 years old at this point.
Yeah,
It's
maybe.
become obviously a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
People on random Tuesday mornings are getting like thousands of people watching a live stream of a race that takes a few days for the winners to complete, let alone the back of the pack, announcing a new race called the Mingus Traverse, 82 miles.
I love races not having to be 50K, 50 mile,
exactly
100
my
mile.
take.
I love it.
Yes.
Like, it should be organic. It should go from point A to point B or be a circle or whatever. I hate when they're like, oh no, we need to add this like 10 mile out and back in order to get to 100. No, 82 miles, perfect.
Lovely.
Chef's kiss.
Exactly. You know, this is the course. How long is the course? Perfect. We'll advertise it as such.
Yeah, I think they do that too. Like Whiskey Basin, I think is a 90K. Like, I love that. And I also think what's really cool about this to me and the success of Cocodona, obviously Aravaipa is its own ecosystem, and you could argue that, you know, how is it so different from a UTMB World Series, et cetera. But I do think that we talk a lot about the narrowing of our sport and how the sport has really shrunk to be about Western states and UTMB in a lot of ways. You're either chasing a golden ticket or you're chasing an entry to get into UTMB, or you're chasing stones to get you and me. We're going on a stone quest at Tarawera. That's what we're there to do. / talk to you all. But in a lot of ways, it feels as if the sport has shrunk to focus on really those two things. And so the success of things like Cocodona, that doesn't get you into Western states. It gets you you get a qualifier. But it's not a golden ticket race. It doesn't get you anything for UTMB. But people are still willing to like put that as part of their season, or excited, or would prefer to do that than something else. I think is really cool in the sense that it tells me that there still is a lot of space and a lot of hunger and a lot of excitement in the sport of trail and ultra running outside of our narrowed ecosystem of the UTMB World Series in Western States. And I love UTMB. You and I are there in Chamonix every year. I'm obsessed with Western States, but I love that there's these other things that exist. And like, that's why I'm excited about Mammoth 200. It's its own thing.
So well said.
And it's often, I love it.
So well said. I think what it also indicates is that there's so much demand for like Cocodona now.
Yeah.
It like, again, it's become this phenomenon.
Yeah.
And they're probably just thinking, hey, what are other ways that we can include other people who aren't ready to step up to like the 125 or the 250 mile distance, but you know, we can include them in this trail running festival. So shout out to Aravaipa, like you said, they've built just such an incredible independent events business, and they continue to like look for ways to progress and bring new people into the sport.
They're innovative, and we touched on Chipotle Challenge for a second. Jamil Curry and his team.
You know what I was just thinking about yesterday too? Like, not only has Jamil built Aravaipa, which is the biggest event company in North America for sure, and massively influential, he basically has pioneered live streaming, especially here in North America. Ryan and I were talking about the Miller versus Hawks video from 2016.
One of our favorite videos of all time.
He shot and edited that, you know, like, he's just brilliant. Everything he touches.
While running 730 miles in January to win the Chipotle Challenge Tempe segment, he was editing and putting out YouTube videos. When did he have time to do that? He's a dad. He's running a business. One of their biggest events of the year, which obviously Jubilee Page has her hands on. Yeah. How does he have? I don't think he sleeps. Is what I've definitely decided. But also, just you and I get burnt out.
Operates on a different level, and it's really inspiring to see. But just like the range of skills too. I mean, people forget that Miller versus Hawks video is iconic in trail running history, and Jamil was one, I think, who shot and edited that whole thing. And I mean, that's like but a footnote in his illustrious resume.
And it's basically just listening to two men run really hard and breathe really hard, which I love because our very own Ryan Thrower, when he edits videos, does that kind of stuff, in which it's like, I love that we have like these moments of like musical interludes, but then it fades out, and all you hear are like the steps or the breathing, and I love that it's actually trail running. So good. All right, well, that was a fun little rabbit hole. Last bit of news before we close for today, Corrine. Another new race announcement. Coast Mountain Trail Running in Canada announced the Alpenglow 100. Of course, this is Gary Robbins' event outfit up there in the Great White North in British Columbia. 100K, 60K, 35K over July 4th weekend. Are you familiar? It's in Valemount? Valemount, BC. It is up there. Mm-hmm. Like, it is kind of pretty far east in the province, and then it is north, north of Kamloops. Like, it's out there. It's going to be beautiful. Yeah. But it is, I think of Manning Park being kind of out there, and it's really like just across the border from the U.S. in a lot of ways. Valemount is out there. Yeah. But if you are looking for a new trail experience, a beautiful trail experience, the vert is kind of moderate, I would say. It's not super extreme. It's like 15 or 16,000 in the 100K. Yeah, so it's verty, but it's not impossible by any means. It's not intentionally hard. And so I do think... Definitely a mountain race, though. I do think if you're looking for something new and you want, honestly... Sounds like a sweet midsummer adventure, you know? You know, if you're training for UTMB, which is maybe a conflict of interest here, but like what a cool like mountainous 100K in July to UTMB or Grand Raid or something in the fall, right? Like it would, or Run Rabbit or whatever. It would set you up for a late summer, early fall mountainous 100-mile race super well. Yeah, I really want to go. Unfortunately, it's the weekend after Western States, which is perfect for a lot of Americans to go up to remote Canada for a nice little like midsummer vacation. Yeah. It's probably light, until 11 p.m. Yeah. Actually, I think the race starts at like 4:30 in the morning or something like that. The 100K might even be an evening start. No, you're right. It's like 9:30 at night. Yeah. So then it probably gets light sort of
halfway
early.
through the race.
But it'd be really cool. You and I are in the middle of, I've been asked a couple times if I can do High Lonesome or if I want to do High Lonesome.
Me
And I
too.
was like, the danger of that is it's like Western States, home for a week, hard rock,
High Lonesome.
High Lonesome, speed goat. And I was like, I might die.
Literally.
So unfortunately, I think I probably have to just stay home and be a human.
Me too. I love those guys at High-Low. I've heard great things about the event, and I know it's Caleb Efta, who's the race director, has done a lot to
I think it's
invest,
Caleb and
especially
Kevin.
in the women's side of the sport too. And I really would love to go
Bucket
participate.
list race.
As you and I know, we're really busy sitting in chairs talking for weeks and weeks before that event, which isn't necessarily good training for a very high altitude.
Yeah, you and I need to race early to mid-June, and then like mid-August, and then survive in the middle.
I can't race mid-August. I barely run in the summers anymore. Anyway, I got 8 miles in this morning, so we're all good here. Anyway, shout out to Coast Mountain Trail Running, Gary Robbins, his partners up there on the new Alpenglow 100 in Belmont, BC. So go check that out. Quick bullet points before we sign off today. Some big news I noticed. Hannes the Adonis Naumburger announced he's coming to the Canyons 100K.
That's so sick.
So as we have our continuing theme of way too early Western States contemplation here on our Newsy Rest Day pods, Hannes added to the Western States field. Again, he's got to get that golden ticket first, but it looks like he's shooting for one. Holy.
Just super interesting because he is an athlete who has crushed Lavaredo consistently, for example, has done well at UTCC.
Which means Lavaredo is a faster race like Western States. Yes,
exactly. So while I think he has come up short at races like UTMB, for example, I'm really curious. While I think of him as a mountain athlete.
He was 4th at UTMB last year.
In a lot of ways. I know. But I feel like he historically, I think his potential is really, really high in a mountain race, but he seems to historically do better in the Lavaredo style race.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see him at Canyons as a precursor to hopefully having him in the Western States field. 3 tickets on the line there for men.
Think about it. I mean, what if Eli punches his ticket this weekend? What if Hannes punches his ticket at Black Canyon? We already have Jim, Rod, Hayden, Peterman, David Roche, potentially Killian, potentially Vincent Bouillard.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, folks. Again, way too early Western States conversations here, which will become a weekly topic here on the Rest Day pod. Again, we'll remember my predictions in our end-of-year podcast episode, which Corrine and I do every December, was that 2025 is the year men go sub-14 at Western States.
We've got a number of men on the line right now where that is the goal. Or who are searching for golden tickets because that is the goal. Because that is one of those things that has yet to happen. This field could make it so.
All right, a couple more things before we sign off. Today at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, 12 p.m. Pacific, Corrine, myself, Zach Marion, Chris Wardner going live for the Shakeout Show with our friends at Mountain Outpost. So if you're listening to this before that, jump on, watch us live. We'll be broadcasting both on the Freetrail channel and on the Mountain Outpost channel. So choose your own adventure there. On Saturday, Corinne's going to be on the broadcast team. Race starts at 7 a.m.
Yeah, so I believe they're planning to go live at 6:30. Race starts at 7. I go on from noon with Skylar Hall, which will be amazing. One more thing that's happening this afternoon, if for some reason you're listening to this before the afternoon, men's and women's elite panels will also be streamed via Mountain Outpost. They go from 3 to 4 p.m. Great lineups for both of those panels. But yeah, live broadcast for both the 100K and the 50K this week. So this weekend. So don't go anywhere. Don't run anywhere. Run in your neighborhood because you've got stuff to watch.
Yeah, which reminds me, go play fantasy. And for the first time ever, we're playing both the 100K and the 50K at Black Canyon this year. The fields are good. One of the things we'll talk about on the show today is the ascendance of the 50K as sort of like an early season rust buster. It's bringing in some like really interesting talent here, is sort of like rip the Band-Aid off, get your first race in.
Well, it's part of the short series for the World Trail Majors.
Yeah. So anyway, fantasy is open now, fantasy.freetrail.com. Pick 5 deep for men and women for both the 100K and the 50K for a chance to win some dope swag from your friends at Hoka and your friends here at Freetrail. Ryan and I are going to be out on the course all day on Saturday. Make sure you follow Freetrail on Instagram. We're going to be posting a lot of stuff up there, which will hopefully be a nice little supplement to Corrine's work on the broadcast itself. We'll try and keep you informed and entertained all day on Saturday as we officially kick off the 2025 season. And finally, Sunday, one of the most important days in America, Super Bowl Sunday. Corinne, who are you picking?
My dad will kill me if I don't say the Eagles. The Swifties are going to kill me for not saying the Chiefs. So I have to go. Family ties run deep. So I'm going to have to go with the Eagles.
All right, bold pick. I'm taking Mahomes for the three-peat. It's going to come down to the wire. He's going to lead them on a last-second touchdown drive to win 31-24.
Whoa.
Down in New Orleans, Patrick Mahomes, three-peat, iconic sporting.
Travis Kelce will then propose to Taylor Swift. All will be right in the world.
And then he'll retire, too. I
Perfect.
think this might be Kelce's last season. So
love it.
Walk off into the sunset to the next Eras tour as a retired, multiple-time Super Bowl champion and marry maybe the most famous woman in the world. Okay, well, that was a great news show. I want to just end on a somber note. Yesterday, my grandmother, Suzanne Beeman, died, 91 years old, was married for 70 years
to
my grandfather. My mom and my grandfather got to share the final moments with her, which is special, profound, amazing. So shout out to Suzanne Beeman, mother of 7 children, married for 70 years, passed away yesterday. So life is amazing. Being a human on planet Earth is amazing. And let's have a great weekend.
Subscribe.
Subscribe to the channel. Peace out, everybody.